Hello, welcome back. Been a little while since I've uploaded, but you guys know how it is. Final year has been so busy. Today I actually wanted to talk to you about something very scary and also exciting, and that is applying for my first job as a doctor. It's kind of a long process that lasts most of final year. I have been making some content over on my Instagram kind of documenting that process, so if you are really interested in how it all works, especially if you're maybe going to be applying next year, because I'm always updating on there as well. But today I thought, for those of you who follow me on here, I would tell you how the process of applying to your first job as a doctor works here in the UK this year. And I say this year because it does change a lot. Changed as recently as last year. So I'm only the second year group to be doing this exact application process. The UK FPO are the organisation that basically run the recruitment of brand new doctors in the UK to the NHS. When you apply to the UK FPO or the UK Foundation Programme, you are applying to the first 2 years of your career as a doctor, and these are called Foundation Year 1 and Foundation Year 2. You have to pass Foundation Year 1 to get your full GMC licence. So when I start work next August, I will have what's called a provisional licence, and at the end of FY1, Foundation Year 1, I will hopefully have passed that and get my full licence to practice. And then Foundation Year 2, you follow straight on usually, but the first 2 years are essentially compulsory before you can progress on in your career as a doctor. The good news is you're pretty much guaranteed a job in the UK if you are graduating and applying through the UK FPO programme and you're a UK graduate. The bad news is this is not a traditional job application process where you apply to a job that you want, you interview, and then you go and start work if you get the job. It doesn't really work like that because we have preference-informed allocation. Up until last year, your job or your chances of getting the job you wanted were a lot more based on your grades and your academic performance while you're at medical school. Basically, how it used to work up until last year was that you would be ranked within your year group from 1 to, I don't know, 200, say there were 200 of you in your year, and you'd be given a decile ranking within your year. If you applied to an area of the country that was much more competitive or more sought after, you were much more likely to get that job if you had high grades. That is sadly in the past, and now we have this brand new system called preference-informed allocation. So I hear you ask, what is preference-informed allocation? Well, to put it simply, the country has been split into 18 sections called deaneries. As final year medical students, we have to rank all 18 deaneries from 1 to 18 in order of how much we want to work there. Ranking number 1 would be the place that you most want to work, and ranking number 18 would be the place you would much rather not work. Now, some places are much more popular than others. For example, places like London, Oxford, Manchester, Bristol. These are places that people really want to go and live after uni and obviously are going to be more popular and more competitive. And unfortunately, there aren't enough jobs in these places for all of the medical students who want to go there. So that means that not everybody is going to get their first choice. So how do they work out who gets to go to their first choice and who doesn't? Well, this is where the random number generator comes in. So in the UK, there are roughly 10,000 new graduates from medical schools every year applying to the foundation programme. And once we have all put in our preferences, we are then given a random number from 1 to 10,000. So everyone in the country applying will be given a number. It could be you are randomly assigned the number 800, or you are randomly assigned the number 10,000. Your number has no academic merit tied to it. It is completely random. I think one thing that maybe isn't understood is how the ranking system works after all first choices have been allocated. I'll try and explain this clearly. How the system works is it goes to person number 1 of 10,000 and it allocates them their first choice. It then goes to person number 2 and allocates them their first choice. Once all of the spaces in, for example, London have been allocated and it gets to the person who's number, I don't know, 4,000th in the ranking, and they've put London as their first choice, but there's no longer any spaces for jobs in London, that person will go to the back of the queue. They won't be given their second choice automatically. Basically, the system tries to give as many people as possible their first choice. If you put London first, were given a ranking of 4,000, didn't get London, it would then move through everybody behind you in the list up to 10,000 and then come back to you. So your second and third choice may have already been filled up by the time it gets back to you. And this meant that last year, some people who had put a popular place as their first choice ended up getting their 10th, 11th, 12th. I will put the data here from last year, and this lists, if you just pause the video, this lists how many people applied for each deanery and how many jobs there were. And you can see that those where there were more people applying than there were jobs are the places that you would need to worry about. Where am I at the moment in my application? So it is now October and we submitted our applications at the start of this month. I had to rank all of my deaneries from 1 to 18 and it was very scary and surreal actually sending off the application. Now I've ranked my deaneries, but I don't find out where I'm allocated until March. So in March we will find out which deanery we're allocated to, and then once we've got that, we can then rank all the jobs within the deanery. So for example, my first choice is going to be Wessex, or has been Wessex, and in Wessex there are 396 jobs. So once I'm allocated to whichever deanery, I have to rank all of those jobs. So there's a lot of jobs to rank, and the random number that you are given for the first set of ranking, so 1 to 18, is the random number that you keep for when you are ranking individual jobs at individual hospitals. If you have bad luck in the first round of ranking and you are given the deanery that you don't want, you are also then more likely to get a less desirable job at a less popular hospital in that deanery. So I just think that's really mean. Why can't they reallocate new random numbers within the deanery? Anyway, the system for me, I'm not keen on it. Let me know in the comments what you think of the system. I think there's pros and cons to either being randomly allocated or allocated based on grades. But what I will say is, as a percentage, more people get their first choice in this system than did in the old system. However, more people also get lower ranking choices, if that makes sense. I think less people get their second choice. One thing I haven't spoken about is if there's any caveats to this system or any loopholes in the system. Now there is a process called pre-allocation, where if you meet special circumstances such as having children or having a health condition that means you need to stay in a certain area for follow-up, you can apply for pre-allocation so that you don't have to be involved in the random allocation system. I have heard that it's actually very difficult to get accepted for pre-allocation. For example, if you were pregnant as a final year medical student but your baby wasn't going to be born before the application deadline, that wouldn't count as a reason to be pre-allocated to a certain area of the country because you don't have a birth certificate to prove that baby is born. Like, this is how the system works, this is how tight it is. There are also two other options. There is a specialised foundation programme, which used to be based on academic merit but is now mostly also random. And there is the foundation priority programme, where if you apply to somewhere that is less desirable, you might get extra benefits and you don't get involved in the random allocation system. But I won't go into detail on those today because that's a whole other video, and I will link all the information below to the foundation programme website. Those of you who are actually coming up to the point where you might be using this system to apply for your first job. So I guess I'll just end this video by telling you my rankings of what I've put from 1 to 18. One thing I didn't realise is that you can edit these preferences up until I think February. So if I change my mind at any point, I can change my rankings, which is great. However, I don't think I will because I'm pretty set on where I'd like to go. Now, in terms of how to rank, if you want to go somewhere, put it as your first choice. The only way you're going to go there is if you put it first. So for example, if you did want to work in London or Oxford or Bristol or one of these places that's really popular, the only way you're going to go there is if you put it first. If you don't put it first, you're 100% not getting it, but if you put it first, you've got a chance. So this is what I've ranked as somebody who wants to stay in Wessex, which is the deanery that covers everywhere from Dorchester up to Reading, I think, Southampton, across to Chichester, and even over to Jersey and the Isle of Wight. But the place that I would really like to work in my first sort of couple years as a doctor is Bournemouth and Poole, where I'm from, just because it would be nice to be somewhere familiar and near my family. And we live in this flat now in Poole and I'd love to be able to stay here for a little bit longer than a year. So this is how I've decided to rank the deaneries, and we'll go from number 18 down to number 1. Number 18, Northern Ireland. 17, Wales. 16, Northern. 15, Trent. 14, Scotland. 13, West Midlands North. 12, West Midlands South. 11 West Midlands Central, 10 Yorkshire and Humber, 9 Peninsula, 8 London, 7 5 LNR, 4 Oxford, 3 East of England, 2 Kent, Surrey and Sussex, and 1 Wessex. I won't talk you through all of them. My only thought process really was that my top 3 choices all had a competition ratio last year of less than 1. So hopefully I'm going to get a job somewhere in my top 3 because I'm applying to less competitive areas. Wessex obviously because it's where I want to be. Kent, Surrey, Sussex because that covers Jack's ends and where he's from. And then East of England because that's kind of like not too far away, a bit near London, could live in Cambridge. And then after that I kind of just put where I like the idea of. Obviously places like London and Severn, it doesn't really matter where I rank them, I'm not going to get them because they're highly competitive. That's it. I just really wanted to give you an overview of the application process because I'm sure lots of you are wondering how it works. It's an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on what you think of this application process and the preference informed allocation system. Do you think it should be based on academic merit, or do you think the system is fairer? I'd love a discussion. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.